It's Emily Kutchins Adler, the Buttery Babe. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're gonna make a delicious appetizer filled with butternut squash, feta, and caramelized onions. Right here I have 2 pounds of cubed butternut squash that I roasted for 30 minutes in a 400-degree oven. I just tossed the 2 pounds of squash with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, about half a teaspoon of kosher salt, and a few grinds from my trusty pepper mill. And then I have 2 onions that I caramelized slowly in 2 tablespoons of butter. They're a little funky today because I used a red one and a white one. We had lots of bagels over the weekend, so I had red onions in the house. We're also going to add to all this goodness some fresh grated nutmeg, a little honey, fresh thyme, half a pound of feta cheese. This one is a Bulgarian sheep's milk cheese. I love it because it's extra creamy. And then phyllo. Phyllo dough is very, very paper thin. I live in Chicago and I have an excellent selection of phyllos available for me, and I can even pick the thickness. It comes in 4, 5, 7, and 10. And the smaller the number, the thinner the sheets of phyllo. If you're in an area where you can only buy phyllo, then buy phyllo. I'm lucky I can pick. So I like number 5 because it's thin and gets very crispy but doesn't fall apart super easily. We're just gonna toss everything in the bowl and then I'll show you how it goes. So again, this is 2 onions that I caramelized in 2 tablespoons of butter with a little salt. I didn't put pepper in there yet, just the salt, and that helps bring out the water so that the onions can caramelize a little bit quicker. And then we've got our 2 pounds of butternut squash. I did cheat a little bit today and I bought the butternut squash already cut up because I don't like peeling the butternut squash, I'll be honest. You can buy it already done, already cubed up, and sometimes that convenience really makes the difference. And that was just roasted at 400 until it's nice and caramelized. I got a couple escapees. Everyone goes back in the bowl. So, to here, we're gonna add a little bit of our fresh nutmeg. It'll just bring out the fall flavors and make everything nice and round and delicious. You can of course buy it pre-grated, but why when you're using the good stuff? And it's also gonna get about a tablespoon of honey. Any honey you have on hand will do. I'm a honey fiend. We have about 30 varieties. Whenever we travel, that's always my take home. I don't get jewelry when we travel. Once in a while I'll grab a purse. But always, always honey. It's the present for me if you can't figure it out. And then we're just gonna take our time and strip it off the stems. And remember, we just take their stem and then pull it backwards. Of course my hands are now covered in honey, so it's not gonna work that fast, but it'll be fine. The little tender stems are perfectly fine. We're gonna chop it up and it'll be delicious. And we're just gonna get about a teaspoon of leaves, not even. If you don't like thyme or you don't have any, rosemary is fine, oregano, even some plain parsley. You just wanna give it a little bit of freshness. Little freshness, and little herbs. Makes it nice and savory because it is a little bit sweet from that squash. Love squash, it's healthy, it's tasty, it's easy to cook, plenty of vitamins in there and some fiber that I can sneak into my husband as long as I'm coating everything in butter, which you know I am because I am in fact the Buttery Babe. So just give that a little chop because I do have some of those stems in there. I'm gonna be a little more precise. Thyme is one of my favorite herbs. It grows beautifully in my garden, inside and my outside garden. Both of them are great. Give that a little chop. And that's gonna get a pinch of salt. And of course, a few cracks from my trusty pepper mill because it's so much better when it's fresh. Then we're gonna just squish it up a little bit. Because the squash is roasted nicely, it'll just break down. You don't want it to be a puree because you do want some texture when you're eating. I'm gonna give it a few squishes with my spoon and then I'll probably move on to my potato masher, just so it's nice and a little bit more fine, because you want your drawers to never open. Stick a potato masher in there. If you don't like as much onion as I put in there, just cut back. It's not a problem. These are recipes that I like, but when we're cooking for ourselves, for the people that we love, so you make the adjustments that you need to make so that they're gonna enjoy their dinner. So that's nice. Now we have, you'll see a few chunks of the squash still in there, and then some nice and smooth. So it gives an interesting mouthfeel when you're eating. You always want a little bit of texture. Now we're gonna put in that beautiful Bulgarian feta. And we're gonna crumble it by hand after we get this resistant squash off. There we go. Everybody gets some. I like to buy a whole chunk and crumble it up myself, but please feel free to buy it already crumbled if you want. So this is a Bulgarian feta. As I said, it's a sheep's milk. This is a double cream, so it's a little bit fattier, because you know, fatty is the best way, really. Fattier, butterier, more deliciouser. And that is that. I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse and I'll be right back. So now all of our friends here in the bowl are gonna get to join together and become a nice, delicious mixture. So again, this was caramelized onions, roasted butternut squash, a little bit of thyme, nutmeg, honey, salt and pepper, all mixed together. You see it's a little bit chunky still. That's perfect. I'm gonna do one of my favorite little party tricks, and we're gonna put that into a zip top bag and then turn it into a little pastry squeezer so that we don't have to get our hands quite so dirty while we're working with our dough. That way we can just squeeze the filling out and we don't have to make little globs or touch it. So everything's just gonna go into the baggie. I guess if you're really courageous, you could mix the whole thing in the baggie, but I like to see what's going on in my bowl, which is why I use my big glass bowls all the time, so there's room for everything and we have equal distribution. So the phyllo, as I was showing you, is still in its plastic bag that it came in because we want to keep it from drying out. It's a very delicate pastry. So keep it in the baggie until you're ready to use it, and then we're going to unroll it and cover it with a kitchen towel to help keep all the moisture inside. So that's in our bag. And then we're just going to seal it about halfway. You don't have to be precise. And you see this little end? We're going to take our knife and we're going to cut it off. And it's kind of a big hole. It's not a problem because we're just going to use it to squish filling out. So now we're going to clean our area up so we have a beautiful workspace. Wipe down the board. And we're going to start using our phyllo dough. This is our phyllo dough. As I said, it comes in a box, and then in the box it's in a bag, and then inside the bag it's wrapped up in plastic. It's a lot going on. You could make phyllo at home. I don't. It's ridiculous. It's beautiful and tastes so much better, but this is one thing where I'm going to say store-made is the way to go. So just keep unfolding it. It's kind of like a little present. There we go. It's beautiful. Just unfold it. If there's little tears, that's fine. Not to worry. And you see, I can even get it apart how thin it is. You can see my fingers through the dough. It's super thin, and that's going to let us get nice, crispy layers. So this unfolded phyllo is going to make its way off our cutting board so we can get ourselves set to work. Which means that we're going to get a clear sheet tray, and we're going to use olive oil and a pastry brush. Why are we not using butter, Buttery Babe? I actually find that the olive oil gives us a crispier finished product. And when I'm using my phyllo, it's all about the crispity crunchity. So we're gonna take one sheet and we're gonna put it on our board. And then we're gonna take our pastry brush and dip it into olive oil. And we're gonna paint away. And we wanna make sure that the whole thing is coated because that's what's gonna make this so crispy and delicious. And remember, we roasted our butternut squash at 400. Leave that oven on because that's the same temperature we're gonna bake these at in a few minutes when we're all set. We're gonna do these in cigar shape because it's a little bit easier to manage, but mostly so I can make a whole bunch of them at once and don't get too frustrated. So that's one layer, and then we're gonna take our second one and just squish it right on the top, kind of drag it. If it gets folded, do your best to keep it flat. And then take your kitchen towel and cover it up. And that'll help it stay fresh. And then again, the olive oil and the brushing. It seems like a lot of work, but none of the steps are difficult. This is very easy work. It's just, there's a lot of steps. So we'll often, when we're making phyllo appetizers, make a ton of them and then keep them frozen raw, and then we can just pull them out of the freezer. So remember, we put our filling in the zip top bag. Now we can just squirt it out in a little line. And again, if you have pastry bags, go ahead and use them. I don't like to clean them. I almost always use a plastic bag. So now we have a nice neat line. And you're just gonna gently put your fingers. So we just delicately flipped our fingers underneath, and now we're gonna roll it. And the first few ones you're gonna be really careful because you're just getting the feel, and then you just wanna keep it nice and even. And it's rolled. See? Now we're gonna take our cookie tray and move it nice and close, and then just pick that up and put it on there. Then we're gonna take our knife and cut it into the sizes that we want. So I always like to cut in the middle first, and then I can have nice even pieces. If your knife is not as sharp as mine, you can stick these in the freezer for half an hour and then cut, and it'll be a little bit easier. And we're gonna take them and squish them back into a little line, maybe. And then take our olive oil and brush the tops. So what that's gonna do is, again, keep that beautiful phyllo nice and fresh, but it's also gonna give it a lovely crackly crust, which is what you always want, because the filling is soft, so you want that delicious crunch, crunch, crunch when you're eating it. And then you can keep on going. You can pop them in the freezer just like that, or you can pop them right away in the oven at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. And then, when they're done, you can tell because they'll be golden brown and delicious. So this, you see, you've got the beautiful layers of the phyllo, you've got the pumpkin or butternut squash and the feta in there too. And it's so delicious and light and yummy. So good. You see that nice piece of feta? Yum. Again, I'm Emily Kutchins, Adler, the Buttery Babe. You can check me out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Food52, and of course, my very own website, butterybabe.com. Thank you.